This is another beautiful day that the Lord has made. Welcome to the Easter weekend. This is a time when we remember the death and resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. And this is a very significant time when it comes to the Christian calendar. And so it is good for us to make sure that we have Christ as the rock under our feet, like we are standing on a firm ground, because all other grounds are sinking. They are sinking. At a time like this, when we are faced with the pandemic of the coronavirus, I'm going to be talking so much about the pandemic today. I do have a lot of my friends that have actually been asking me a lot of questions. Remember one friend of mine who shared a video and was asking me whether the coronavirus, is it the virus that is killing people, or is it the 5G that, of course, network that is actually being tested in most of the major cities of the world. And so looking at that, I know the world is confused and people don't know exactly what is happening. I have heard a lot about the upcoming vaccine, and there's a lot of things that people are sharing in the social media. Of course, most of it is inciting people not to take the vaccine when it comes. I'm going to be talking quite a bit about that as well. Some of those things, I remember I was telling a friend of mine that we who are in the ministry, like myself who is a pastor, I cannot just say anything, because whatever I say means a lot. I have to go into research. I have to make sure that I listen to God to understand exactly what God is telling us in a situation like this one, so that I can be able to authoritatively speak concerning the issues that are happening in the world today. So I'm going to be talking about the relationship between coronavirus and Christianity today. Like, what does that mean to us as Christians, and how do we respond to the coronavirus? The heading of my sermon today is overcoming crisis, or understanding and overcoming crisis, because not only the coronavirus that have caught us unaware, looks like the governments of the world were not prepared for such a pandemic like this one. And since it has happened, how do we respond to it? How can we be proactive more than be reactive? One of the things I realize is the pandemic that we are facing today is one of the biggest challenges to humanity of our time. Of course, the world is facing one of the largest pandemic of our lifetime. I have been hearing people talk about pandemic, others epidemic, and I would probably want to clarify what is the difference between the two. An epidemic is a disease that is within a certain country, like Ebola. Ebola was an epidemic because it was in some certain West African country. And so, because it was within that particular country, it was an epidemic. But the coronavirus is not an epidemic, it is a pandemic, because it is all over the world. It's like a virus that has a passport. So it can move from one country to another freely, and it is affecting everybody everywhere. So it is not as small as an epidemic, it is actually a pandemic. And so, as we are dealing with this particular pandemic, as the people of God, we should be in a place where we are able to respond to such a crisis, not being reactive, but being proactive. One of the things that I see, which is very clear, is that the foundations have been shaken. The Bible says, I believe that is in Psalm chapter 11 and verse 3, when the foundations are shaken, what will the righteous do? Or when the foundations are destroyed, what will the righteous do? You see, as the people of God, we cannot sit there and expect help and expect to be helpless, and the world is looking for a solution through the people of God. So I realize that all the 7 mountains of influence that we talk about have actually been shaken. One of the mountains of influence that have been shaken is the family, which of course is one of the pillars of the economies of the world. The family has been shaken because many people have lost their jobs and they have come back home. Yes, we are together as a family, but we do not have money. How do we put bread on the table? How do we continue to pay loans? How do we continue to pay mortgages? How do we continue to pay loans? How do we continue with development projects? How do we keep the sustainability of the life of our family? That is something that has really been affected by the coronavirus. Right now we also have situation whereby since there have been some lockdown, there are some families where some members of the family have been locked in a different part of the world, or a different country, or a different city, where they are not able to come together. And so the family union also in that case has been affected. Another mountain that has been affected is religion. The religion, or we would call it church or spirituality, it has been affected because right now, because of the virus, we are not able to congregate together in our normal meeting space. And so that is a mountain that has been shaken. The business mountain also has been shaken. The economies are bleeding. We are facing a global recession where companies are losing. Big companies are coming down because of the effects of the virus. The political world has been affected so much. I remember only a few months ago, there was quite a number of people moving around in rallies saying nobody can stop reggae. They had quite some funny kind of way of doing politics, and there was this thing, BBI. By the way, what happened to BBI? I thought everybody was crazy about BBI. All over January and February and even part of March. It was crazy. People are talking about BBI, honestly. Of course, for those who are watching from outside Kenya, BBI is a building bridges initiative that of course has been politicized, and people have been talking about how we bring the communities in Kenya together in cohesion, and how to, of course, come up with solution to economic and historical injustices in our nation, and try to bring people together. We needed to restructure our government, maybe include some more people in government, maybe try to include the opposition. There was quite a lot of politics that was going on at around that particular time. But all of a sudden, everybody is talking about coronavirus. I was watching the news the other day, and I was wondering, before coronavirus, what were we watching in the news? Because every day we used to sit down and watch the news. And seems like right now is how many people have been infected, how many people have died, and what is the government saying? Are we going to pay rent? Are we going to pay our loans? You know, is the government going to give some relief? And everybody is in panic mode. Another mountain that has been affected, mountain number 5, is education. Our children are at home. They are usually in school, but right now, because of the virus, they cannot be in school. They have to be with us back home. And so that is also a mountain that has been affected, the education mountain. The media also has been affected. Our world has completely changed. The world that we woke up to in the year 2020 is a totally different world. And we cannot behave as if the world has not changed. People are worried about what happens next. They don't understand what is going to happen tomorrow. Again, I would want to quote Psalm 11 verse 3. If the foundations are destroyed, what will the righteous do? Is there something we can do at this particular time? And has this happened before? Have there been crises before? And how can we respond to crisis in our time? I want to read something from the book of 2 Kings, chapter 4. 2 Kings, chapter 4. I'll be reading from verse 1. It says, "And now the wife of one of the sons of the prophets cried to Elisha, 'Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant feared the Lord. But the creditor has come to take my 2 children, to be his slaves. And Elisha said to her, what shall I do for you? Tell me, what have you in your house? And he said, your servant has nothing in the house except a jar of oil. And he said, go outside and borrow vessels from all your neighbors, empty vessels, not too few. Then go in and shut the door behind yourself and your sons and pour into all the vessels. And when one is full, set it aside. So she went from him and shut the door behind herself and her sons. And as she poured, they brought the vessels to her. When the vessels were full, she said to her son, bring me another vessel. And he said to her, there is not another vessel. Then the oil stopped flowing. She came and told the man of God and said, go sell the oil and pay your debts, and you and your sons can live on the rest. I realized this was a wife of one of the sons of the prophets, of course, who had died, and the husband had quite a big debt, and she didn't have a source of income, and so she finds herself in a crisis. And the creditor had come and was asking for the money to be repaid. And during that time, the only way she could get the money repaid is by giving her sons to be slaves so that they can be taken away. The family fabric was being affected by the crisis that this particular woman was facing. The coronavirus pandemic is affecting the whole world. But I don't want to talk about the global effects of the coronavirus. I want to talk about the family effects of the coronavirus. How is the coronavirus affecting every individual? How is it affecting the family? And how can we be able to respond to this coronavirus pandemic that is threatening the livelihoods of our families? And so, one of the beautiful things about this woman, she was the wife of one of the sons of the prophets. She knew where to go whenever a problem set in. And so she went to the man of God. I don't know where you go when you have a problem. Because many people, the other day I saw something circulating in the media, and there's a lady who was asking the government, serikali saidia, serikali saidia, serikali saidia. I don't know how many of us are still doing the serikali saidia thing. But definitely, I believe it gets to a time where you have to make the right decision, especially in a crisis, on where you need to go and look for your help. Some of the people who are expecting the government to help them right now, they are sitting back and waiting for relief. They are waiting for 2 kilograms of unga or maize flour to be given to them. They are waiting for the government to distribute some free masks. They are waiting for the government to distribute some free hand sanitizers, some free soap, and maybe some free money, you know. But David was someone who knew better. And he says, I will look up to the mountains. From where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of the heavens and the earth. And let me tell you, my brother, my sister, when you look at the coronavirus pandemic, we need to come up with a solution. We need to understand, where will our solution come from? Is the solution to the coronavirus going to come from the government? Is the solution to the coronavirus going to come from the Lord? If the solution is going to come from the Lord, then we need to get to our knees and ask God, what now? How are we going to confront our current challenges today in relation to the coronavirus? And so she went to the man of God and said, you know, my husband died, the creditor has come, and he wants to take my... And so, the man of God asked her, what do you have? And she said, I have nothing. I only have a little jar of oil. A little jar of oil. That could have been some, you know, some oil, some cooking oil. That could have been some alabaster, maybe some sweet perfume. Maybe that would have been some, you know, oil, like some petrol oil, or would have been like some paraffin in her house. And the servant of God said, well, can you go and take that, borrow some cans, go and borrow some jars, many jerrycans or many vessels, and take that little jar of oil and pour some oil into those jerrycans, into those vessels that you have borrowed. She was given a clean check. She was told you can get as much oil as you want. It is upon you to go and borrow the jerrycans. And she went and locked herself together with her sons, and she started to pour the oil into those jars of oil. And the Bible says that she told her son, can I have another one? And the son said, I don't have any other. They are over. And the oil stopped flowing. During this time, when we have a global pandemic and everybody is worried about what now, I believe it's time the Lord wants to bless some of you. During a crisis like this one is when the Lord came in to help this particular woman when she knew the best place to go for help. And so she went to the servant of God. And she told the servant of God, you know, I have already put the oil in the jars as you told me. And the Bible says that she said, the servant of God said, can you go and sell the oil and pay your debts, and the rest of it you can live on it with your sons? So the Lord provided not only a solution to the problem that they were experiencing that time, but the Lord provided a livelihood. The Bible does not tell us how many jars of oil they had collected. Maybe they had collected a lot of jars of oil. And when those jars were brought, I believe they probably had enough oil to sell to the whole. And so this woman came from a place where she was a poor woman, trying to go by her life, trying to get some enough food to support her family, to somebody who was very, very, very wealthy, and somebody who had enough money to feed her family. This coronavirus is going to leave some people richer than they were before. There are some people who are struggling before with death, but after the coronavirus, that is going to be a different story completely, because they know where to go for help. One of the things I would like to say is that since the major pillars of the economy have been affected, we need to understand the kind of world we are living in today. And how do we respond to the kind of world we are living in today? So one of the things I would like to say is that most of you guys are working from home. I was interviewing some of people on Sunday the other week, and they were telling me, I was asking them, how are you prepared to deal with this particular pandemic? And some of them were telling me, you know, we are just staying indoors and we are hoping that the cloud will pass so that things can come back to normal. I have come to tell you that the world has changed. Things will not be the same. Let me just try to bring this a little bit into perspective. I am not a prophet of doom. I'm not telling you there will not be a solution. But I want you to know that this is not a bacterial infection. We are dealing with a virus. And the only way to eliminate a virus is by coming up with a vaccine that people can be given to make their bodies more immune to this particular virus. And so without that particular vaccine, then I'm sure this thing is going to be around us for a long time. This is the first time in our history that the world is going through a time when our borders are closed. I would have wanted to fly to another country this month, but I cannot go to that country. Why? Because I cannot fly. All our planes are grounded. Why are they grounded? Because they are avoiding the spread of this particular virus. One of the things I've seen in the social media now, people are saying that when this vaccine comes, don't take the vaccine. Let me tell you what will happen. Of course, in the initial days, we have a problem with the people testing the vaccines. And so initially, we might have a lot of tests going on, and maybe not having full information as to the side effects of these particular injections. But in the end, we are going to have a working vaccine. The governments today are facing a big challenge because they do not know what happens to the person who, like the person who has been infected today, they can stay with that without symptoms for the next 2 weeks. They have no symptoms. Somebody can come from another country and fly into Kenya within 48 hours without even the symptoms showing. So what happens if we have done our social distancing and our physical distancing, and we have eliminated the coronavirus in Kenya, and so we have allowed everybody else to go to work? Yet our borders will remain open. So we have people who will come from countries where they have not eliminated the virus, and they are going to be coming into our country. So what happens in that case? So in that case, the person that comes into the country, or the people that come and they are infected, they are going to spark the virus again, and the whole country again is in danger. Because before people realize that of course the virus is within the country, then it has really gone. Let me tell you, my brother and my sister, the vaccine is going to be a solution. But now governments are also struggling with the problem of what is this vaccine going to look like? How do we know who has been vaccinated and who has not been vaccinated? And so that's why they are coming up with the nano SIM implants, the nano implants technology, where when they give you a shot of the vaccine, they want to put something electronic in your body, so that you can always get scanned as you go across borders to know this one cannot get coronavirus because they have already been vaccinated. And that is what most people are coming out in uproar. They are saying, you know, now it has already been prophesied in the book of Revelation that in the final days, before the second coming of Jesus Christ, people will have the chip that's going to be implanted into their bodies. And nobody will be able to buy or sell without that. Nobody will be able to travel without that. Let me tell you, my brother and my sister, this is very close, by the way, because if you do not have that, if that is what technology they are going to take and that's what the governments will agree to do, then that means if you go to a public place, like if you go to a shopping mall, you're going to a place with thousands of people or hundreds of people. And you could have the virus, but you're not immune to the virus because you have not been vaccinated. So if you are going to go there, then you're going to be endangering other people. Because you don't know how many other people again are coming into the same mall and they have not been vaccinated and they don't have the virus. So they are saying the only way to make sure is they have a way of digitally recognizing or being able to identify the people that have been vaccinated. So our world is changing so much. I'm going to be speaking a little bit about that in the coming service on Sunday, where we are going to be looking at what does this mean. Is this nano implant going to be the mark of the beast? Like exactly what they are saying, that Christians all over the world, we are not going to accept those implants. Because they are saying instead of just having an implant for identification, the women are going to have an implant for the birth control. Something that can, control the hormones of the woman so that she can decide when she wants to get pregnant and when she doesn't want to get pregnant. Others are saying it's going to have a personal identification information so that the government can monitor the number of their people and wherever they are. Other people are saying it's going to have your bank account linked to it. It's going to have your debt record, linked to it. We are going to be looking into that on Sunday and be able to understand, like, what is the truth behind this? Is this the mark of the beast? As Christians, are we going to accept this particular vaccine if it's being offered to us? But one of the things I would like to say is we need to respond to the pandemic appropriately. One of the things I want to discourage you is to sit in your house waiting for the pandemic to be over. We have been praying and telling God, let this go by Easter. Of course, this is the Easter weekend. And I believe that in many countries, actually, by this time, we have seen they have been able to flatten the curve. They don't have as many infections as they used to have in a day like before. But you see, flattening the curve does not mean that the infections are not there. The infections are there. Until we have a working vaccine, the infections are going to continue being there. And so one of the things I would like to say is that we need to be able to learn on how to, or discern how to live in a world that has the coronavirus. And your employer, some of you, has sent you back home without a pay. You have unpaid leave because the company is not making money, right? Some of you have shut down your businesses. You've gone back home. What are you doing at home? We are sitting at home waiting for Jesus. We are waiting for Jesus to remove this virus so that now we can go back to our normal life. We do have many other kind of viruses that have been there before, but yet they have not come up with a vaccine for these particular viruses. A very good example is the HIV virus. We do not have a vaccine to date for the HIV virus. What do we have? We do have some medicine that help to suppress the effects of the virus on your body, so that you cannot die quickly, so that you cannot die because of the other, so that your immunity can be raised, but it doesn't completely destroy the HIV virus that is in your body. The other day, the CDC and WHO and others came together. I remember even the Bill Gates Foundation was involved, and they were in West Africa. They were coming up with a vaccine for the virus that was affecting that particular region. And it took them impressive 5 years of very, 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 very hard work to come up with a vaccine. So in 5 years, they were able to come up with an Ebola vaccine. And right now, the experts are, giving us an assumption of time. It's going to take between 12 months and 18 months for them to come up with a vaccine for this particular virus. So if it takes 12 months from now for them to come up with a vaccine for the coronavirus, are you going to be sitting at home for 12 months? Are you going to be able to feed your family? Are you going to continue with your life from home? Or what is it going to look like? If your employer does not call you back, then how do you survive with your family? It is time for us believers, since the foundation has been shaken, for us to be able to do something.